Y'all want to see Denzel in his blue-collar daddy era? He was fine. The story of John Q opens up with a Tamu Jessica Alba getting into a car accident. One morning, John Q Archibald finds their car being towed. He explains to his wife, Denise, that they don't have enough money to pay the rent. It's either the car or the house. The black Candace Owens is frustrated as things start to pile up after Bush took office. Life is tough, money is tight, but my anus is tighter. The Archibald's only son, Mike, gives them joy and hope. Though already working 20 hours at the plant, John still needs a second job. His best friend Jimmy even accompanies him to an interview, but the manager says John is overqualified. After being forced to attend church, John and Mike excitedly rush to his baseball game. Even with bills mounting, John puts on a happy face during Mike's game. Everything is going so well until Mike, visibly in pain, loses consciousness. They rush him to the hospital, and the nurse tells them they have to fill out some forms and get some tests done. Even though Mike is awake, he is incredibly weak. His doctor, Dr. Turner, says the boy is at risk of having heart failure. Rebecca Payne, the hospital director, meets them afterward to discuss Mike's case. Dr. Turner says that Mike's heart is no longer working well, and the boy's going to need a heart transplant or he'll die. But Rebecca coldly explains that the heart transplant is high risk, and there's a huge chance that Mike will die during the operation. So she advises the couple to think about long-term medication, treating Mike's condition as their new normal. John wants to take the risk, so he asks the doctor to go ahead with the transplant. There's an organ recipient list, but Rebecca explains that there are a lot of other things to consider before Mike is listed there, and the cost is very expensive. John is confident that his insurance will cover the cost, but the hospital found out that it's not going to be covered. Rebecca reminds them that they have a little over $1,000 in savings, and without insurance, they will have to pay around $250,000 for Mike's transplant. A down payment of $75,000 is also needed just to put Mike's name on the list. Where's Luigi when you need him? So John wants to transfer Mike to the county hospital, but another doctor, Dr. Klein, tells them they're at the right place and that they should just do everything to keep Mike there instead of leaving. John's boss explains that the company has switched insurance carriers, and as a part-timer, John is qualified only for the second-tier coverage that has a payout amount of $20,000. But John has always believed he's a full-timer. Now he learns that he's been moved as a part-timer. The only thing John can do is to file an appeal to the insurance company, which will take 7 working days. Denise and John both have tried everything, but unfortunately, there's nowhere else to get help or money from. Then John receives mail from the insurance company saying that he's qualified for a claim, but Rebecca says he filed the wrong paperwork. He needs to file a grievance, which will take 30 days to be processed. John gets angry, but Rebecca explains that the hospital has already done everything it can to help. Someone slap this white hoe. John is already looking at more than $30,000 in expenses. He starts selling their furniture and receiving donations, and still the money is not enough. Day by day, Mike gets weaker. Jimmy advises John to talk to Tuck Lampley, an investigative reporter, because maybe he can help shine more light on Mike's situation. Tuck wants to do the report, but he has to get his producer's approval first. John even sells his ring and his truck, but the money he gets is still not enough. One day, Denise calls to say that Dr. Turner is releasing Mike from the hospital. She gets angry and tells John to do something, or their son will die. So John returns to the hospital to talk to Dr. Turner. John has found out that the hospital does 300 heart surgeries a year, totaling $75 million. Mike is just one case of many, so why can't the hospital be more understanding? Dr. Turner reveals that he has already waived his fee but can't do more because the Board of Trustees makes the final decisions. John promises he'll pay everything, and he just needs more time. But when Dr. Turner still doesn't give in, John snaps and threatens the doctor with a gun. He wants the doctor to do the operation. John locks the door and drags the doctor inside. People run out when they see his gun, leaving only a few people in the emergency room. Big Back Max, an unarmed security guard, Miriam, a pregnant woman, and her husband, a woman named Rosa with a crying baby, Mitch and Julie, a couple, a man named Lester, and 2 nurses and 2 doctors. John breaks the security cameras around the room. Then a new patient, who ironically has a gunshot wound, arrives. John orders Dr. Turner to operate, but the doctor says he's a heart surgeon and not an emergency room physician. But John doesn't care. He's even glad when the situation finally gets the attention of the authorities. Lieutenant Frank Grimes is in charge of the case. He's been a hostage negotiator for 35 years. He orders his men to tap the telephone lines and access the extra security cameras in the ER. Frank contacts John through Max's radio. John wants Frank to look for Rebecca Payne, the hospital director, and make her put Max's name on the donors list. The hospital is surrounded by the cops, but John is not a bit afraid. He even warns Frank that if he doesn't get what he wants, someone will die. Miriam finally goes into labor and she is taken care of. The rich guy, Mitch, says they got into a car accident, but everyone in the room knows that it's a lie. The truth is he beat up his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Dr. Turner successfully saves the patient's life. A nurse tends to Mike and surprises him with a wrestling toy, but it looks low-key racist. Chief of Police Gus Monroe arrives and is a crowd favorite. He wants Frank to handle the case smoothly, as he doesn't want people thinking that his city is unsafe. The two try to measure each other's Ds and one-up each other, but we all know both are sporting 4 inches. Inside the emergency room, John wonders why no doctor ever picked up Mike's heart problem. Nurse Steve says that it's because of John's HMO. It basically pays the doctor not to test so they can keep the cost down. A little confrontation follows. They all agree that hospitals shouldn't turn away people who need help. When John picks up the phone, he gets turkey neck Frank on the line. Frank wants him to release some hostages, but John doesn't want to do that. Then Dr. Klein says Miriam needs to be moved to the maternity ward. Rebecca arrives and identifies John, saying that John's son is in the ICU. John agrees to let some of the hostages go. Then he gives Frank an hour to put Max's name on the list of recipients, or someone will die. But when John is letting some of the patients go, Mitch stabs him with a scalpel. They wrestle for the gun, but John manages to break Mitch's nose. Instead of helping Mitch, Julie starts kicking him as payment for all the times he beat her up. Then one final blow to his little peanut. At this time, people have already gathered outside the hospital. They know John's story, and Lampley is reporting on the matter. John releases Julie and Steve together with Rosa and the baby. Rosa even tells the reporters that John is a good man. Rebecca says she can't just put Mike's name on the list because he's not the only one who needs it. So Sergeant Moody suggests they tell John that Max is on the list. Temu Lionel Richie needs to shush. When Frank tells Denise what John did, Denise sides with her husband. Feeling sorry about the situation, Rebecca has decided to put Mike's name on the list, and the hospital will pay for everything. Frank thinks Rebecca was lying about this, but she gets offended because she wasn't. Now that's the kind Anne Heche that we love. Somewhere, the woman who got into an accident has been found by the authorities. With the help of the hospital's head of security, Wally Petoniak, the police have found a way inside the emergency room where they can attack John. When Lieutenant Frank learns about this, he confronts Chief Monroe. But Monroe insists it has to be done because there is a threat to the hostages' lives. He's willing to make the call. They send a man to crawl in the air ducts. Then, they let Denise call John to get him to a certain part in the room. Lampley's assistant, Freddie, hacks the police's signal and manages to have access to the security camera inside, including the phone call between Denise and John. Mike is very weak, but John assures him that everything will be all right. Even Denise is afraid that Mike will die very soon. Because of Lampley, everyone outside knows what's going on in the hospital. The sniper is just waiting for orders. When the order is given, he waits to get a clear shot. Then Lester tells John he is on TV. John realizes he's being watched, but it's too late as the sniper already shoots him. But the sniper falls down from his hiding place, giving John the chance to beat him up. The mayor calls asking him to stop the live feed. Everyone has been watching everything that's been going on inside through Lampley's broadcast. People outside cheer for John. They think the police shot an innocent man. John then walks out with the alopecia, shiny-headed sniper. He confronts Frank for lying to him. He now wants them to bring Mike to him. If they do, he promises to give up and release everyone. So Lieutenant Frank gives the order to bring Mike into the emergency room. When Dr. Turner sees Mike, he warns John that the boy is going to die soon. So John volunteers to give his heart instead. He knows that they are compatible with each other and he can be a donor. Dr. Turner doesn't want to do it initially. It is unethical, but John threatens to kill himself, and once he does, he knows the doctor will use his heart to save the boy. Even though Dr. Klein and Nurse Steve warn Dr. Turner that he can lose his license, the doctor has already made up his mind. He will not waste a heart and will do the operation. John talks to his son for the last time. He says it's a miracle they have found a heart for him. He advises the boy to be kind and to live a good life. Somewhere in the country, the woman's dead body has reached the hospital. She's a registered donor, and all her organs are still good, including her heart. She's also B positive. John takes out his gun, and the hospital staff learns that his gun was empty the whole time. There's only one bullet that John has always intended to use on himself. He pulls the trigger the first time, but the safety lock is on. Then Hope Memorial Hospital receives the news that a heart compatible for Mike has arrived. Rebecca Payne is surprised, and the good news is immediately shared with Denise. But when Denise tries contacting John, John turns off the radio. She runs to the hospital to warn John before it's too late. Then one by one, the hostages exit the hospital. A man wearing a cap, believed to be John Q, surrenders to the police. The bystanders all cheer for him, but Lieutenant Frank knows it's not John Q. Inside the hospital, the heart transplant is a success. Just a little later, Lieutenant Frank walks in and asks John to handcuff himself. The story takes over the whole country. Media outlets cover John's case until his trial. He's facing charges of kidnapping and attempted murder. The jury finds John not guilty of attempted murder and armed criminal action, but they find him guilty of kidnapping and false imprisonment. He is looking at a 3 to 5 year sentence. John says goodbye to his loved ones, and Denise reminds him that she's so proud of him. Mike thanks his dad for his sacrifice, and John knows it's only a matter of time before they see each other again. This movie was terribly rated on Rotten Tomatoes by critics, paid by insurance companies, I'm sure. But regular folks like us enjoyed it. Although corny and melodramatic, we all need a John Q in our lives. What did you guys think of this classic?
Hey, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe now and turn on the notification because YouTube isn't recommending my videos. And if you'd like to watch more foolishness, click here or here.